Ready?
Hello and welcome to Rhythm and Pixels, a video game music podcast. This is episode 30-3 and we're your hosts. My name is Rob Nichols.
And I'm Pernell.
And every week we listen to great video game music from all consoles, all generations, just everything. We find great music and we listen to it, we talk about it, and we just get into it. So I would say that last week we had a little bit of a gap, so Pernell went ahead and recorded a very special bonus beats episode with sound-alikes, which was really, really cool. Was it hard finding those tracks?
Yes and no, because I wasn't looking for them. They were tracks that I came across in my general travels, where like you might be listening to a thing and you're like, this sounds really familiar, but due to how much game music I listen to and how many games I've played over the years, I would hear something and it clicked, like, I know this track. And I would start running through the Rolodex in my head, and it might take me like 5 tracks that I look up before I pin it down. I'm like, that's the one. That is exactly the one.
Do you write
Can't
them
tell
down?
me no different.
I would have a hard time remembering.
That's what I did.
Remembering. Okay.
Oh, I did. I wrote them down. Because I kept them on the side because I knew that when the time came, I would have forgotten. So when the time did come, I was like, I'm go bring up this document that I kept in my nightstand drawer. And there they were. So I went ahead and used them. I was like, this is good. And that's also why it'd be cool if other people submitted like tracks for it, because I would like to find more. And I know more exists, but there are hundreds of thousands of video game tracks out there across tens of systems. It is really hard to nail that down. So it'll be really hard to find them intentionally, I think.
Oh, I think so. I think so too. You'd have to just run into them. But yeah, so listeners, if you're interested, it's only it's less than a half an hour. And it is last week's episode. It's Bonus Beats 11. Pernell, I'm going to ask you to take your phone and move it somewhere else because I'm getting a little
Is that what's causing that?
Yeah, I think so.
There it is. That definitely was. I was like, I don't know. Maybe something's happening. Maybe it's only on my end.
Yeah, your phone starts to talk to space, and then space talks back, and then we all hear it. So yeah,
I didn't say anything weird. I don't know if people know what my phone says when I sleep.
It's a really specific sound. It's like almost impossible to replicate. It doesn't sound like anything else in nature, I think.
It sounds like It sounds like a frog croaking. To a duck after swallowing a Pringle.
Like maybe something slowly breaking apart, but it's very digital sounding. You also probably noticed, listeners, that Pernell is not in the same room as me. It's just dealing with some more stuff, and so it's just easier for us to record remotely this style once more. But we should say that our next episode will be, if it's cool with you, Pernell, we'll do our Patreon live episode next time.
Yeah, I'm good for that.
Right.
I hope that also might give some people more chance to get some tracks in, because I feel like it was scattered. Like some people would remember, go, oh, here's a track, and then some people would forget, and there's something, oh, here's a track.
Well, I've realized that our scheduling has been so
erratic.
Now it has been, but for the past so many months, we've been on point. End of the month, we do our Patreon show every single time, to the point where I didn't even announce it. And people
just knew.
Hey, when's it happening? When's it happening? And people ask us at our Discord. So if you are a fan of the show, if you like what you're hearing, you can check out our Discord, which is on our website, rhythmandpixels.com.
And speaking of asking our listeners and stuff too, I want to bring this up before I forget about it. There were 2 things I thought were cool.
Oh man,
over the last week.
All right, vent. You got to vent. Let it all out, Pernell. Tell them.
Well, not really a vent. These are good things.
Oh, okay.
Venting can happen on another episode. So we have some listeners of the show, friends and listeners of the show. One we haven't heard from in quite a while, actually.
And they're in trouble.
He wrote to us recently. No, they're not. This is cool. Apparently, OK Impala, unbeknownst to us, is a game developer or game designer. Did not know that. He wrote to us back on Halloween about the release of a Zelda 2 ROM hack that he did.
Cool.
That got a fair bit of press, actually. It's called A Midas Curse.
Oh, yeah. I think I saw that somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he sent a link to, but I want to say Nintendo Life or somebody talked about it. It's a ROM hack of Zelda 2 that he did, and I'm looking to get it really soon. I've been inundated with like these blasted reviews to the point where like I can't even get to my darn Labyrinth of Refrain. But it sounds like the intent is that it involves dungeons, like the normal dungeons of Zelda 2, but there's a prime focus on world map exploration and dungeon exploration, less so on the battles, more on the adventure.
Oh.
Which sounds like an interesting premise, because I do also, like, one thing worth noting is there's no random encounters on the world map, which I appreciate,
really
because
like
I
that.
hated those in Zelda 2.
If you Google this thing, like on NintendoLife.com, they wrote a whole huge, big article on this thing, and the the headline is that this Zelda 2 ROM hack removes all the annoying stuff to present a totally new adventure. And I think that's a great way to put it.
And that's what makes me want to try it out too, because I do find, because one thing that always messes with me when it comes to ROM hacks, which is why it's harder for me to get into certain ones, is that generally being a ROM hack, they reuse assets from the currently existing game, and like me remix it and stuff like that, which is cool. But if you're the type like me who's always like, I gotta find this new thing, and you're like, but I've already played through all the game's new things, it becomes harder to draw me in. But once I'm in on the experience, I am locked, and that's been proven because I recently got to play the Zombies Ate My Neighbors ROM hack that apparently I know the guy who made that too, and I did not realize this. But it's called Oh No, More Zombies Ate My Neighbors, and it's just a bunch of new levels the guy made. He remixed the level maps. He put enemies in stages that they normally would not have been in, and still cool things like that. And it's fun to play, and it made me realize that deep down, Zombies Ate My Neighbors could potentially be an infinite game. Just give me new maps with the neighbors to find and make me navigate them. That's all I want. And I'll just play it forever.
Yeah, I was thinking like that could easily have been a PC game with like a level editor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that would have been a lot of fun.
And then like, I was like, I know you're really good at being like, okay, we got to step into the show. I'm like, but wait, we got one more thing to mention.
I was just thinking about like how the parallels of like early PC mods, and I was thinking about how like Doom didn't really have a level editor, but like the tools were created for it, and then it was widely distributed, and it created like a whole subculture of people making their own like games, essentially using Doom as an engine. You know, that would have been really cool for some like, and I feel like ROM hackers are thinking the same way. That a lot of them are developing tools to create new games based on original NES titles or Genesis titles as the game engine, which I think is like, super creative and really, really neat.
Oh, 100%. And if anybody's listening to this and is hearing what Rob is saying and going, that just seems hokey and ridiculous, like, no, it's not. And proof of that, I always use this as a prime example because I was shocked when I realized it. No one told me, I just picked up on it. Corpse Party is a very popular horror game franchise now. But it originally started as an RPG Maker game. Oh. They made it an RPG Maker as a horror game. It's not an RPG at all, but they use those tools to make a horror game.
Yeah, you can do a lot with that. Yeah, RPG Maker is a really interesting game engine. I think there's still new versions of that system out there.
I just reviewed the one for the Switch like earlier this year, and I sucked at it because, again, it takes a lot of time and a lot of creativity to make this stuff run and do what it needs to do.
I think some of the biggest examples would be Half-Life, which is a mod of, what was it, Quake?
Really?
Yeah, and then Marathon, which had I think there was a bunch of mods for Marathon, which then turned into the Deus Ex franchise. But yeah, Half-Life was originally a mod, and then
I never realized that. I was never just like, Valve being Valve. But I guess before Valve became humongous, they were just some guys running mods.
Well, yeah. Because like if you're going to go out there, if you're going to create a mod for a game, you become a developer. Even if you're just making levels and stages for an existing game, like you become a game developer because you got to think about all those mechanics and how the player would react to things. So.
Yep, it's the same reason why you get all these, like, you go to look at Mario, you look up Mario hacks, and there's tons of them, but very few make the cut. Many of them are just like, run to the right. Oh no, there's a block. You're stuck. I'm smart. Like, no, that's not good level design. That's just some guy playing with tools.
I see some of like the super hard Mario Maker stuff, and I'm like, no, maybe not for me. But I respect the people who want to make it and play it, but I can't. Figure
but the thing that's cool about that, like, I agree. Like, I'm not a Kaizo Mario guy or whatever, but some of those levels are mapped in a way that you have to understand the game's physics in such a way that you can make it so that the player's going to jump from here, which will instinctively put him here, which will make the shell go there, which will then send it this way, and they'll get to the bottom just as your Mario runs across this plate. Like, they do some insane stuff that the player then has to figure. Like that one level, for example, the one with the it's really popular right now. It's the one with the fire bars, where you just have to navigate the room full of fire bars to the end. Yeah, it's stupid hard, and I hate it. And I think I may have gotten like a fifth of the way through the stage before I said, screw this. But to sit down and time all that out and measure out where Mario would have to be at a certain time and plan the whole thing, that surprisingly takes a lot of effort. And I'm wagering that took a while for that guy to design it.
Oh,
Even if it was literally just Mario 1-1 with fire bars. It still took a lot of work.
Yeah, just back and forth, testing. You also learn how to test games, which is super important, too. There's not enough game testing. Okay, so I am going to start pushing us into the episode now. Okay,
so in that case, then one last thing. This will be quicker then.
All right.
No tangents required. We got a letter from one Rage Cage, and I'm going to hold him to this. He said that the last episode regarding the sound-alikes, in addition to the Mahjong bonus beats you did a little ways back, inspired him to finally get up and bust out a VGM podcast of his own. And to that I say, do it. Do it. Better to do something than to not even try at all. Worst case scenario, you did it, didn't do what you wanted, you can try again if you feel like it. But if you never try, you just have this idea sitting in your back pocket that could be a winner.
That's right. If you like what you're hearing, if you like something that you're doing and you want to try it too, don't think you're just being derivative for the sake of being derivative, because whatever you do is going to have a completely unique spin on it, and it's going to be your voice and no one else's. And
that's right.
And if anything, you're going to learn so much in the process of doing it. It's art is the same way with drawing, painting, sculpting. Any creative endeavor is always worth doing, and sometimes you have to emulate things that you like in order to learn how to do those things. So I encourage anybody to go out and try it. This is not a narrow, tiny little pond that we're all playing in and trying to push each other out. I want everyone to play and have fun.
Yes, so and just imagine what it could be. Like, so many VGM podcasts. It could be the VGM Podcast Network.
Well, it's good because, like, I mean, it happens. Like, things go on hiatus, things go away for a while, and so it's nice to have like shows kind of come in and come out, so that there's always something cool to listen to.
Agreed.
But there will always be Rhythm and Pixels, and there will always be the Legacy Music Hour. Except for that 1 year. Except for the dark year.
Except for the dark ages. and who knows, soon we might be able to say there will always be the Rage Cage. So let's see how that goes.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to hearing what he's going to be doing. So is there anything else we want to announce other than that we have a Patreon episode coming up next week, which after this episode is released, it is tomorrow. So if you're interested at all about watching us record a show live, it's patreon.com/Rhythm and Pixels. I don't know why I'm talking this way.
Rhythm and Pixels live!
Thank you. Yes. It's like it's like one of those things you see on TV. It's like, Rhythm and Pixels live. Come
bring popcorn because we charge too much.
Come see Purnell talk in the microphone. Kids eat free. Like that. That's right. And again, bring your own popcorn because we're charging a ton for it. We can't charge popcorn. We can't get it to you. You're in wherever you are. Yeah. It's just minutes off of I-95. Rhythm and Pixels live.
And I think I'm just saying that because I did go to see a Marvel movie recently. I went to see the My Hero Academia movie recently. And I'm feeling a little on the cheap side lately, so I did, for the first time in a long time, sneak my own crap in the theater.
Oh, yeah.
No shame either.
No.
Not a drop of it.
You got to. I mean, unless you go there hungry and you totally didn't plan, like you got to bring your own stuff. You got to bring like a extra large Wawa hoagie into the movies.
You joke, but I have in fact done something similar. What was I snuck in like a freaking like just like weird like chorizo burrito one day. It was almost like at that point it was just me being brazen. Like, what can I get a scented food item in here? No one's gonna smell chorizo on me walking to the theater. They didn't.
No.
Downside is that it dripped all over my pants, and when I left, I had this massive like blazing red stain going down my pants.
So there is a danger.
It was worth
There's
it.
Well, there's always the danger, right, of not just getting caught, but making too much of a mess, and not just ruining theater, but ruining your clothes. And I will always, I feel bad. This is something I remember, but like really early, you and I went to like an Otakon in like 99 or 2000, and we were in one of the video rooms watching like live action, like kung fu movies or something. And like you, like in the middle of the room, you just like bust out a tinfoil of catfish, and you start eating catfish.
I got it from the soul food joint in Baltimore.
It's not uncommon for people to bring food in there, but like everyone's like, "Is that fish? Someone eating catfish?"
Damn right, it's fish fried too. It's delicious.
And I'm like, "Oh man."
Like, that's right. You know you want some of this. Don't act like you don't like fried catfish.
Yeah, everyone knew. Everyone knew. I thought that was so funny. Yeah, no, I brought in
At least it wasn't
all
sardines.
sorts of stuff. Yeah, all sorts of stuff. No, I brought in food and drink into theaters. It was the last time I remember really bringing a lot of stuff was the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I think it was the last one. We went to King of Prussia and we saw like the midnight showing, like the very first showing. Which was a terrible idea for like a 4-hour long movie to go at midnight.
Watch the sun come up when you leave.
Oh my god! But no, yeah, we brought like so much food into that place.
Jesus,
man.
And I mean, admittedly, for that movie, that's the movie you do need to bring your own stuff in because you're going to be leaving, coming back.
Oh yeah, you'll be there for. Oh yeah, and you want to enjoy it. I mean, those movies are so good. I want to watch. I'm thinking about watching them again. I've seen them so many times.
That's the same reason I haven't played Persona 5 Royal yet. It's just too much time for a redo.
I know, but like especially with this stuff, you can, like I can put it on and like clean the house. Anyway, so you brought up Persona. So hey, everybody.
No. Purnell did not bring up Persona. Let's not get shot by Megaton Hell. You did not bring up
I'm just
Persona.
Saying, Persona is a spin-off series of the core series that you and I will be chatting about today. And by chatting about, I mean listening to great music from in the core series, Shin Megami Tensei.
And it came up because as of the time this episode comes out, the fifth game, the long-awaited fifth game, will be dropping 2 days afterwards. And that is like the last thing I have to look forward to for 2021, and I've been looking forward to it since the Switch came out, because it was announced as being released on the Switch when the system was announced, pretty much. So I'm anxious. I want it, and it's a good excuse to talk about it again on this episode. Is the Megaton franchise? Yes, what episode 1-4 was SMT? Yes, it's a redo. Don't care. Favorite franchise. I love it.
Okay, so this was our 4th episode that we talked about Megaton. I think we're allowed to talk about it again. I mean,
hundreds of episodes later.
Now, like, how long ago was this thing? This was
2015.
Yeah, December 2015. So, yeah, 6 years. 6 years. We can do it again. We can absolutely. Do
and
it
one
again.
thing I wanted to mention because I was joking. You're young at heart forever, forever. But like. Something I wanted to bring up because I think it's funny and yet at the same time it's an interesting concept is that over the years, Persona has gotten to become really popular. Mainly started after like, I want to say the 4th game was what triggered it, but the popularity in the Persona franchise exploded out of nowhere. And what ended up happening as a sort of side effect of that is the mainline franchise, Shin Megami Tensei, kind of got kicked to the curb a bit because Atlas was like, well, here's our bread and butter. Here's where the money's coming from. Let's just keep pulling into that. Which is still kind of funny considering that, the time between P4 and P5 is a long period of time. But I digress. So there's a group of like more hardcore SMT fans, of which I'm actually considered, I'm technically one of them because I'm in the same freaking social group they're in. that literally just hate any mentioning of Persona. It's amazing how vehemently they hate this. To the point where like reviewers will talk about SMT 5, which is coming out soon, and if they so much as mention Persona 5 in their review, people lose their crap over it. And it blows my mind. It really does, because two things. One, the quickest way for some people to make a direct correlation to something or understand something is to draw a direct correlation to something they understand and already know. And Persona is a spinoff of Megaten, so it makes logical sense to be like, well, this has the same demons that this had, despite the fact that those in the know which came first, the egg before the chicken. But then the other part of it that I think a lot that blows my mind, this ties back to what we talked about on the earlier recording of how I said when you're at a certain age within like a social circle, you're older than these people, you pick up on something, which is that Persona, like, I've gotten into the SMT franchise because of Persona 1's release in 1997 or 96. I want to say it was 97 in the States. And before that, the closest I'd even come was the release of, well, not even a release, the announcement of Devil Summoner in Game Fan magazine as a Japanese release on the Sega Saturn, making me think it was going to eventually come here, which made me want a Saturn. And then it never released in the States. And even still, I had no idea Devil Summoner was a spinoff of Shin Megami Tensei. I didn't know what the hell that was. Persona and getting obsessed with Persona 1 is what taught me what the Shin Megami Tensei, and by extension the Megami Tensei line was. So Persona is why I know about Shin Megami Tensei, and is why I am now in a Megaten group that loves the franchise, and also why I'm really confused when people are like, you're talking about Persona but not this. No, they're all the same. Just play the damn games. Who cares? It's nonsense.
Yeah.
But
well, if we're gonna talk
at the same time, don't kill us.
If we're talking about some of the origins of the Shin Megami Tensei series, it looks like the first release was Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei in 1987. Mm-hmm. That's how far back it goes. And then as the games were coming out on the Super Famicom and then on the PlayStation, they did not get North American releases, even though in North America we were playing RPGs and getting into Japanese RPGs. But it turns out that they were really concerned about North American audiences because of all of the all of like the religious themes and all of the demons, all that stuff. And I think that kind of makes sense because I feel like, oh, Mom, see, I'm playing a game with dragons, and that's cool. Then you're like, oh, Mom, I'm playing a game where I'm summoning devils. And
you also got to remember that at one point, the Mom, I'm playing this game with dragons was also considered, oh, this is demon worship. You're talking about magic and dragons.
Yeah, there was the satanic panic of the mid-'80s. So there was definitely, I think, a little bit of carryover of that into the early 90s. But the first game to be localized in North America in the Shin Megami Tensei series was Jack Brothers for the Virtual Boy. Which is and very odd to me. I don't know anything about the Virtual Boy, let alone the games that were released on it. And I don't think I'm alone.
All I know about the Virtual Boy is, one, I couldn't afford it, and two, I wore glasses, so I couldn't play it comfortably.
Exactly.
So I just kind of stayed in the store.
This thing came out, and I was like, I can't afford that. And I looked at it, and I'm like, I don't want it. Like, who is this? Who is this even for?
Yep.
It's an interesting idea. There's a really, really good Virtual Boy episode on Retronauts podcast where they talk about the development of the system, how it was made, why it was made. It's really cool. Like the history of the device, amazing, but the device itself, especially when I was a kid, I was like, this is terrible and terrifying. I don't want to touch it. But yeah, so Jack Brothers was it was a dungeon crawler, came out on the Virtual Boy in like 1995, and then it wasn't until I think 97 that we finally got Shin Megami Tensei.
Here's where it gets funny. So
what did come out?
You mentioned earlier.
I remember seeing Persona for the PlayStation.
I got you. I got this one.
Yeah.
This will be funny. So, like you mentioned before, you said there was concern about the imagery and such in the game, right? Yeah. So, when we got our entry into the franchise, it wasn't called Shin Megami Tensei or Persona Be Your True Mind, which was the original Japanese name. It was called Revelations Persona. It was supposed to be the beginning of the quote-unquote Revelation series. It's the only game of the Revelation series. No, I take that back. No, Revelations of Demon Slayer. That was on Game Boy Color, which was also just a port of Last Bible. But Persona, for the reasons like you mentioned before, is probably, to me, one of the most butchered localizations ever done by a localization company. If you look it up, it's out there. Like, the amount of nonsense they did to localize this game and clean it up for or they thought they needed to clean up for North American audiences is laughable. But as a result, it earned that moniker, but it was still fun to play. It was just so many dumb things. Like, the thing I always laughed at the most, and it goes back to like how I joke about Barrett on Final Fantasy VII for the same reason, is that for some reason they thought that it made sense to turn a Japanese wacky kid into a black street thug kid who swore in like every statement and spoke slang. Like, he was so out of place and just like would curse for no reason. It's like, it made no sense. But someone in the local was like, you know what makes sense? This guy. We'll call him Mark, which was actually his Japanese name too, or like it was like Masuko or something like that. But anyway, I still like the game, and I played it incessantly, like to the point where I ran like hundreds of pages off of a friend's printer, just printing like the Demon Compendium and Spell Guide from Henry LaPierre's original game FAQ. I was obsessed with the game.
You remember the writer of the FAQ?
Yes, because I was obsessed with it. Henry LaPierre saved me time.
I just love that there's like even down to the history of the game, the history of the FAQ written by a fan. Like, it still sticks out in your mind and it means that much to you. But we should get into listening to some tunes. This show is about music for now.
Yes. If anybody's listening, like, where's the music? We're sorry.
We're very, very sorry. It's coming. So, talk a little bit about the history and our history. Let's listen to, and then talk about some music. I think it's you.
Oh, right.
You starting us off.
All right, so may as well start with the beginning of the franchise, and I feel like I haven't picked this from the show yet, so here we go. This is the original battle theme from the game Shin Megami Tensei 1 from the Super Famicom, composed by Tsukasa Masuko. Welcome back. You're listening to the battle theme from the game Shin Megami Tensei on the Super Famicom, composed by Tsukasa Masuko. So, Shin Megami Tensei is the first of the Shin Megami Tensei line. I want to say it released on the Super Famicom originally in 1992. Could have been 91, but I'm almost positive it was 92. And this game is interesting in that it is a dungeon crawler to the letter. Like, all the dungeon layouts, all the town locations, every place you go is a classic 3D maze. Think like Fester's Quest or something like that, how it was like a bunch of walls and 3D walls.
Hard to figure out where you're going.
Yes. And yet somehow it still remained compelling. And I say this as a person who didn't play it for the first time until he got his hands on the fan translation in like 1998 or 1999. It's a good game. It sets up the general dichotomy of what becomes a staple in the franchise, which is that there's a main hero who, through some circumstances, manages to survive an apocalyptic event resulting in the end of civilization as he knows it, and is then forced to embark on a quest to inevitably reshape the world. And he has to choose between an alignment known as law or an alignment known as chaos. Something that D&D fans know very well. But the main, of course, staple to this and makes it work out is the fact that you also have to deal with like demon summonings. Using a demon summoning program bestowed upon you by a guy that goes by the name of Stephen, who's meant to represent like Stephen Hawking and the universe. Wow. The computer allows you to combine demon data to summon demons from it and use them in battle. I can't remember if this game utilized this process, but I know at least in future games, like maybe some spin-offs, depending on your alignment, you could or could not. Actually, not most positive. Demon Summoner started doing this, but you couldn't use certain demons if your alignment didn't match theirs, or if your party alignment didn't match theirs. So like you had like an angel and a Dominion. You couldn't have a succubus and an incubus in your party because they were chaos versus your lawful angels. So they would bicker. So.
Well, that's interesting, and that's something like that's a theme with especially like early, like 90s and late 80s Japanese RPGs. As so many of them are based on American Dungeons and Dragons tabletop RPGs. You know, the idea of having hit points, the idea of magic points, the idea of like a lawful, you know, of character alignment. All of these ideas came from American tabletop role-playing games that were very popular with Japanese game developers, and then just translated very, very well into computer games. And so you
thank you, Gary Gygax.
And so yeah, exactly. And so you start to really see it like distilled down into the Shin Megami Tensei series, which is just, I mean, super dark, especially for the time. Like, you know, especially considering all the other games that are available for the Super Famicom, it's very, very dark. You know, living, being one person in like this post-apocalyptic world. But the soundtrack itself has that feel to it, which is real. I think it's unique, not just because it's Super Famicom music, but it's done in a very dark, almost disturbing way. Even this battle music, which is fun and fast, is like it's like off key or something. It just sounds kind of weird, and there's all of the guitar sounds have kind of like an organ kind of feel to it. And
it's interesting you say that
too. Really interesting style.
And it's interesting you say that too, because at the beginning, it didn't come up here because it's a separate track, but at the beginning of every battle, unless you were ambushed, the very first choice you have to make is usually, you'll see the demons lined up, but then you have to choose if you want to fight them at all. You can choose to talk to them, you can choose to run away from them, and by talking, I mean like you can outright negotiate with them to get money or have them join your party or items. And the music that plays then is a little bit more tense, like a doom, 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 doom. It's like, make a decision. What do you want to do? You think you can take these guys? Think you can talk them into joining up with you? Make a decision. You know, and I always feel like a little tense when you're like in a new section of the game. It's like, who the heck are these things? Is this a guy spinning in a flaming wheel? I don't know if I can take him. Maybe I can convince him to work with me, but I have the wrong demons for this. Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. I like that it gives you that option too. A lot of games, like you get this random encounter, and then like you better be prepared. You know, like if you're walking around, you know you're going to get into a fight, and unless you're able to run away, which is still usually in a lot of these games, running away is like a roll of the dice.
Yeah, and I can honestly tell you, like, it hasn't happened with the later games, but that might just because I've gotten more used to how they work. But my earlier plays with these games, trust and believe, I did the demon conversation specifically to survive. Because I was like, I can't win, and I don't want to risk running. I'll take my chances talking to them first.
Yeah.
See if I can get them to just walk away.
I bet they're set up that way to do that. All right, so for my picks, I skipped ahead a little bit, rather than starting from the beginning. Because so many years ago I played a lot of the earlier music. So I'm going to jump ahead to The third in the series, Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne for the PlayStation 2. I guess it's third, but I guess there's a lot of other games and spin-offs in between. But this is on the PlayStation 2, composed by Shoji Meguro and Kenichi Tsuchiya and Toshiko Tasaki. And we're going to listen to the large map music, which is from the last area of the game, and it is pretty rockin'. So here we go. You're listening to the large map last area of Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne for the PlayStation 2, composed by Shoji Meguro, Kenichi Tsuchiya, and Toshiko Tasaki. And I feel like with this version into the PlayStation 2, you're still getting that really dark edge to the music. This whole soundtrack has a cool dark edge to it, but it still gets really rockin'. It still has like some really jazzy tracks in it, but it's a dark jazz and it's a dark funk. And I feel like this track really, I don't know, it has that feeling of like a storm. You know what I mean? Like a storm is coming. And so this being the last area of the game is perfect. It's perfect for that.
I think that's a very accurate description of what it represents too, because like I'm saying this is a guy who I'll talk about why shortly, but never quite got to this point. The reason why that makes sense is because at this stage of the game, the general narrative kind of flies back to what I was saying before about the first game, where you are a person who ends up, at the beginning you start out like going to a hospital to visit your teacher who's like been out of school sick. You and your two friends go. And while you're there, you discover, ooh, scary, dark cult and crazy things happening. And it turns out you are summoned there by your teacher intentionally because she wanted you to survive what's called the conception, aka the end of the world. And when this happens, some events occur and your main character becomes fused with this parasite that turns him into a half-human, half-demon. Goes by the demi-fiend, essentially. That's what people refer to him as. And you spend the game traversing this wasteland, hoping to ultimately harness a power known as Kagetsuchi, which will allow you to rebuild the world in the image that you choose. But throughout the game, you come across the two friends that came to the hospital with you. They get summoned they survive the conception as well. And unfortunately for them, they don't receive the same benefits you got. So things occur, and eventually things happen where they end up becoming candidates for this world rebirth too, and you ultimately find yourself either siding with them or fighting against them for your own purposes. And at this stage of the game, you've pretty much either chosen your side or trounced both of your friends, and now you're making the final pilgrimage to the Tower of Kagatsuchi to ascend it, make your pact, and make your stand, and choose to rebuild the world as you see fit. So, the storm's coming, all right.
Wow.
Wash it all away.
Wow, and that's player choice, right? They're giving that choice to the player.
Mm-hmm.
That's
certain choices you make throughout the game will determine who you end up siding with and how things play out, and then eventually you get to the end, it's like, let's go.
Ooh, I like that. I love the second, like there's the intro to this track, and then like on the loop onto the second intro, it adds this violin to it, so that it feels like, even though it loops that main section, kind of that chorus section again, it doesn't sound like a loop because it built back up in a different way. So this whole track kind of spins and spins around and around and around, and it feels like it's fresh every time it loops again. So I'm assuming large map or last area is not just like you're looking at a map. I'm assuming it's like an overworld, right? And as you move around it, you're getting involved in random encounters and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good. So that it's getting broken up and here and there, but when it comes back to the track, it probably still feels fresh. That's really...
A little less Little Caesars, a little more Papa John. I'd start someone heard me say Papa John's and go, no, ain't no damn Papa John's.
It gets fresh. Gets a little more like a local pizza place that is owned by nice people that we like, and they're nice people.
Now we're talking. That's the real deal.
That's the real deal. But yeah, no, it was what makes video game music, especially classic video game music that loops like this, really successful in keeping these loops sounding fresh to the player's ears over and over again. And I really enjoy that. And I really enjoy this track. I enjoy the mixture of the guitars and of the violin, all the instruments in this track. And I'm hoping that both of us have a lot of examples of the style of this dark sounding music for the rest of the show. So what's your next one?
I'm not sure if my others will be, but I think this next one will be for sure because it comes from the same OST. So that helps.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
But this track that I'm about to play is likely the reason why I may have heard the track you just played in the game, but I don't remember it. Because I never beat the game, because I spent a lot of my time in the Labyrinth of Amala from the game Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, composed also by Shoji Meguro, Toshiko, Tasaki, and Kenichi Tsuchiya. Welcome back. You are not listening to Labyrinth of Amala. Instead, you are actually listening to the Amala battle theme composed by Shoji Meguro, Toshiko Tasaki, and Kenichi Tsuchiya from Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne. And the reason why you're listening to a different track is because Rob's keen ears picked up on the fact that I did play this track most likely on episode 1-4.
Yeah, it was. Yep.
I just wanted to hear it again.
We played a lot from Nocturne. Our earliest episodes, like the first 10 or 15, our original format was we would pick tracks from the same game. But we quickly left that format.
Like, let it go. It'll be terrible. But, like, at the same time, I'm glad I was able to pick this one at least then, because both the dungeon exploration theme and the battle theme really stood out to me in the Amala zone. So Shin Megami Tensei 3 in Japan originally came out on the PlayStation 2, but there was more they could do with the game. I'm not sure if it was left out on the cutting room floor, or if they just decided they wanted to add more content on their own. But as a result, there was more to be expanded upon. And for folks like myself who were alive and waiting for it back in the day to get a localization, we were livid when Atlas kept kicking the can down the road saying, we're not ready yet, we're not going to localize it yet. And that's because they were waiting on this expanded version of the game, which later became known as Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne Maniacs with an X. And they added a few things, including the Amala network, or rather the deep Amala environment area, which included a new True Demon ending, and Dante from Devil May Cry 3, which is where the funny meme of featuring Dante from the Devil May Cry series came to be, because it was this giant sticker slapped on the front of Shin Megami Tensei 3's release cover, basically saying, you guys don't know about this Shin Megami Tensei thing, but we think you'll really love Dante. Come play and see what Dante's doing in this weird new game. Which I thought was pretty funny, because again, it just goes to show you, like, up for the most part, the franchise is extremely niche, and this was their way of trying to say we can coax people to getting it. And worth noting for folks who might not be aware, the other reason why Dante ended up in this game, because it wasn't specifically for North American audiences, that was just a convenient coincidence. The reason why he ended up in the game was because he and basically the guy who designed Devil May Cry's artwork, and Kazuma Kaneko, the artwork designer of the original SMT Demons, kind of developed a bit of a friendship of sorts, and they made a deal where Dante would end up in Devil May Cry 3, but then in exchange, Kazuma Kaneko would design the demon forms for Virgil and Dante in Devil May Cry 3. So that's where their art design came from, was the guy who did the art design for Shin Megami Tensei Demons. So it's pretty good stuff. And it made me happy because having Dante in this game was awesome, especially when he's hunting you through the Amala network trying to kill you. It was a cool setup, and then eventually he becomes friends with you, and he becomes a party member, and he's running around shooting things and all. The one thing that's kind of dopey, and also worth noting, and then I'll stop rambling, is the fact that earlier this year, this got a port, like a remastered port on the Nintendo Switch and PS4 HD remaster. And even though they retained all of the original content, they made one surprising change. And that is, somewhere down the line, they lost the license to having Dante in the game, supposedly.
Okay.
So what they did, instead of putting Dante in that section of the game, they put Raido Kuzonoha from the Raido Kuzonoha series, which is also a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei, in as the person hunting the Demi-Fiend and then eventually joining his party.
I thought you were going to say a foul-mouthed black kid was going to be in the show.
Oh, no. Thankfully, at this point, Atlas is like, people like the game. We don't have to hide stuff anymore and make up dumb stereotypes to make them sell.
Yeah.
But then they released it. They did end up releasing Dante as DLC after the fact.
Oh, interesting.
Which to me was just like, I don't like Dante enough to pay $10 for him. I'm good with Raido. He's awesome in his own right. Plus, he has a talking cat. So, even better. So, I personally love Shin Megami Tensei 3. It was the first actual Shin Megami Tensei official game to come to the States.
Yep.
And I was excited for it because I could finally see what the game franchise is really like. And I was not disappointed.
Yeah, the original Shin Megami Tensei for the Super Famicom didn't actually get a port into North America until it was released on iOS in 2014. So, I mean, that's a long time. And even then, like, you got to play it on your phone. So, and that's really sad.
Very much so. Like that's the game. If there's anything begging for like a collection or something, it would have been these games.
Yeah. So we're gonna switch gears here. We're going into Xbox territory. We're looking at Shin Megami Tensei 9. This came out on the Xbox back in 2002. We're gonna again switch gears musically with a track called Harajuku. In all of these games, there's always like themes for different areas of Tokyo or different areas of Japan that you're visiting. So this is the theme of Harajuku, composed by Masaki Kurokawa. This is Harajuku from the game Shin Megami Tensei 9 for the Microsoft Xbox, composed by Masaki Kurokawa. Holy crap, that is a smooth jam. Oh, that's good.
You mentioned earlier, but you said this would likely be a hammock approved jam session.
I would imagine so. I mean, that piano lick at the end there, that scabba-dabba-doo is just it's funky and it's jazzy, but it has that scary feel to it. I don't know what's going on. Like, I think the bass is funky. The rhythm is kind of quick. It's kind of snappy. But there's something going on there in the background of these tracks, which is just unsettling still. There's still something really unsettling.
Hello, Mother dear.
Yeah, it doesn't sit quite right. I don't know much about Shin Megami Tensei 9. I do know that in 2002, they developed. They wanted to make a Shin Megami Tensei that took place online. So not necessarily a massively multiplayer game, but a game that you can play with friends online using the Xbox Network system, which then took way too much money and development went on for way too long, and that was scrapped for just the single player experience. This game takes place inside of an online world, as far as I know, and not like in the real world like in the other games. But what's interesting is that years later they kept the code for this game, and then they actually made the online game on PC, and it's called Shin Megami Tensei Imagine.
And I have come across like fans who've like created private servers to host sessions of the game.
No kidding.
Oh yeah, like I've never gotten into one because me playing games with strangers. But
yeah.
God, it feels weird like I'm 5 or something. Daddy told me no games with strangers.
That's
just how I am.
They say that, but then you go online and then you hear what the strangers are saying, and you're like, well, yeah, I can maybe do without them. That's fine.
Yep. Yeah. And I can tell you flat out, what was it? This is like a quick tangent. Like I had a review earlier this year for a game called First Class Trouble, which is an online only game. And at this time I was playing it, it was only with other reviewers. And I still was like, I need to get off this thing. This is skeeving me. Like, I wasn't even happy with that. It's like, this is a curated group, and it still sucks.
Oh, that's a shame. That's a shame. But, okay, here you go. So I learned a little bit more about this. So it does take place in an online world. It takes place in between the end of Shin Megami Tensei 1 and 2. So it's after Tokyo's destruction, all of the survivors are sheltering in like underground bunkers, and there's an online world that they all kind of communicate in and they all live in together, and there's still demons and demonic beings appearing in this online world. And you and so your role is to kind of go in there and fight these demons in the online virtual world, which is like, I guess kind of makes, I mean, it's a little on the nose for a game they were intending to be an online game.
Well, one thing worth noting, though, is that just by the scope of how the games have always been portrayed, the demons are essentially data, which in some respects they postulate that humans themselves are also just data.
That's deep. I don't know if I'm ready to handle this information.
We're all just data.
No, I did read a book.
We're ones and zeros.
Oh, what was it called? I'm not sure if it's a classic sci-fi one, but it's in the book there is there's a scientist who creates a machine that you can edit your DNA, right? So you put in like you map your genome and you look at your DNA sequence, and you can just go in there and edit it, and then put yourself in the machine, and then give yourself the edited DNA to, like, cure cancer, do all of these things, right? But the machine is taken over by this group of hackers, mainly one of them. And this hacker is like, oh, this is just code. You're just altering the code of humans. And so he goes in there and develops ways to just hack his own code and to do crazy things with his body. Now, ultimately, I think there's aliens, or there's some kind of like bioweapon being created that they have to fight using this DNA sequencing machine and work together with the hackers. But ultimately, the hackers hack their own bodies to give themselves like wings, so they could change their bodies so they can live in space. They do all this crazy stuff. And it always really stuck with me that they just saw themselves, like, if given the right tools, given any tool, that person with that mindset would be like, what else can I do with it? Like, because the hacker mindset is always doing something different, doing something with it other than what's intended, right? And so if you had a machine to change your own DNA, what could you do differently? Like, oh, the intention is to cure a disease, and you're like, well, what if I wanted to grow gills and live underwater for a while? So
but I can tell you right now, if I could edit my DNA in that scope, the first things I would have in mind would be, I'm sure there's like some jerks on the weirdos and it's like, I want to give myself large nether regions or something. But for me, it would be literally like the idea of like, okay, I want to be able to live without oxygen, which means whether it's gills or some way to process, I live in an area that has no oxygen. I want to be able to do that. So I'd figure out a way to pull that off. Beyond that, I want to fly. I want to be able to fly. Between those two, after those two things, it just get weird at that point. I want a sixth finger. Whatever.
Yeah, so I like that. So everything is based around not living on land anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. I want to be
Try
free.
Something different. Yeah, free somewhere else. And, I think that makes sense considering the state of the world. All right, moving on to your last track.
All right. So this comes from... I noticed I skipped Shin Megami Tensei 2 because I also have the least experience with that game. I wish I should go back and play it someday. I don't know why I have it. Oh, the whole lack of localization, Atlas. Thanks, buddies. But this comes from the game Shin Megami Tensei 4, not Apocalypse. This is the original one.
Oh.
And this is Pluto Castle from that game. And this is composed by Ryota Kozuka, Kenichi Tsuchiya, and Toshiko Konishi. Some familiar names from the previous tracks. Welcome back. You're listening to Pluto Castle from the game Shin Megami Tensei 4, released on the Nintendo 3DS. 3DS. Composed by Ryota, Kozuka, Kenichi, Tsuchiya, and Toshiko Konishi. So, I have like a particularly fond attachment to Shin Megami Tensei 4, in that, one, I was anxiously anticipating its release and was geeked when it came out. And two, this game really helped me get through my gallbladder surgery, because it was pretty much the game I was playing while laid up in bed, waiting to get better. I was obsessed with it. And then lastly, of course, is that this game helped me really place a new emphasis on the idea of like what I like about these games, which is that they really make you come to understand the demons you're using and what they can do. Because if you use incorrect demons at the wrong times, you're going to get wrecked. And there's a particular image I took a picture of back in 2013 that I tend to share every time it comes up in my memories, where I was fighting Ashura as a boss. It's a really big boss. And it's a photo of my main character he has 1 hit point left. And all of my demons are dead. And I just took like a Hail Mary final attack, and he died. He was like, I can't believe I was beaten by a human. I'm like, I can't either. Because I was pretty screwed. I'm sure of that. But SMT4 was very different, I would say, from the previous SMT games, in that it provided a fair bit more sense of character to the NPCs you interacted with primarily in the game. A lot of times you would have like, your law hero or your chaos hero, and they would pop up for an event here and there, and then eventually it's like, time to make a choice. What are you gonna do? Or in the case of the third game, or in the second game, they kind of travel, or the first game, they travel with you, but not a ton happened. It was more like every once in a while they'd have a line of commentary they would say, and then you'd have to make the choice. But in SMT4, they were kind of like companions with you throughout the entire game. They have general conversations about all the stuff they come across and see. You get to learn about who they were as people, their interactions, and then when it's time to make that choice, two things. One, it's a harder choice to make because you come to like everybody you've been hanging out with. Now someone's got to die. But then also, it's not necessarily a one-to-one choice, because you make a lot of choices throughout the entire game. And each of those choices has a secret number associated with it. And at the end of the time, when you have to officially make your call, if you haven't reached a certain score from your choices, you can't go the other way. So there's like this bar where it's like between -10 and +10, you get the neutral route. Anything above 10, you get lawful. And anything below -10, you get chaos. And apparently it's really hard to naturally get between the neutral route, which is in between the 10s, and I pulled it off and was shocked when people were like, oh man, how did you do that? I'm like, what do you mean? I just did it.
Does that mean that being in that neutral area, you were able to do to use lawful and chaos, like demons, and do both sides a little bit?
Well, in this game, they don't have you can only use certain types of demons. It's just anything goes. But on the lawful route, you ultimately end up having to, you pretty much side with like that game's world of like version of God. On the chaos route, you side with Lucifer. But if you take neutral, you side with humanity instead. So you basically take out both, better just Merkaba. You take out both Merkaba and Lucifer, and you side with the humans to save humanity from being under either's control. Which that was the choice I wanted, so I was glad I was able to actually do it. So I was like, cool. Screw these guys, their dogmas suck. But this particular track, and one thing I liked about this game also, I'm not going to spoil how or why you come across this, but this plays in an alternate world, or an alternate version of Tokyo that you go to. And in this alternate version of Tokyo, God decides that humans they don't deserve to exist, and he pretty much nukes the world. And the place you end up in is called Blasted Tokyo. It is a desolate wasteland version of Tokyo where the last remnants of humanity live underground. But God decides that's not enough. You all need to die, so he sends something known as Pluto down. And Pluto pretty much injects poison into the world, slowly killing it. So your main team ends up having to go to his stronghold to kill him, to stop him from doing it, to save humanity. And it's an interesting, scenario that takes place there, because your characters are all talking and discussing, why would this even make sense? What's going on in this place? But it's really cool. Like, I love this freaking game. It deserved a lot more love than it got, that's for sure. But at the end of the day, I played it backwards and forwards, and I would do it again if I had the ability to spend extra time redoing gameplay. I suck at that.
I feel like the 3DS and the PSP, to some degree, both had a lot, like a much larger library of these JRPGs that probably wouldn't have been released anywhere else. You know, they found a home on these handhelds, mainly because maybe because it was cheaper to develop or to distribute on those devices, or maybe because it was easier to spend more time on RPGs on a handheld device that you could just sort of pick up and play and put down.
I think in the case of Atlas, though, in some respects, it may have also just been that by this point, they had the vibe that the Shin Megami Tensei line had enough clout behind it to say, hey, let's start pumping these games out. We already got them in Japan. It's not going to hurt us to localize it.
I see.
So, like, for example, we got Soul Hackers here for the 3DS. Soul Hackers was a game that originally released on the Saturn, and I wanted it badly enough on the Saturn that I actually had a friend bring it back from Japan with him. And I have the Japanese game here that I tried to play, unable to read it, but I played up till like the second boss, making random choices in all the dialogue makings and demon summoning areas. But it got localized, and I bought it, and I was ecstatic because I was like, finally I can play Soul Hackers. Because there you go, they hack souls. Get it? But then, like, there's other games that ended up getting that play too, and then of course Devil Survivor, which you've heard me say is like one of my favorite games probably ever.
Yeah.
It's just they finally started giving it the clout, the love that it deserves. But ultimately, majority of those games are all spin-offs of this original line. Which, let's be real here, if you already like a game world enough, what's wrong with more spin-offs? Spin-offs allow you to do things that the mainline series outright can't do naturally.
Yeah. Or to tell more stories around it. I mean, ultimately, all of these games are based off of a novel, a Japanese novel series, a science fiction series called something Megami Tensei Devil Summoners. So
I still want to watch the movie too. Apparently, there was an anime movie as well.
Wow,
I never watched.
Yeah, big following. So my last track is another spin-off. It's a spin-off of a spin-off. So the last game was Shin Megami Tensei 9 for the Xbox. It was development for the online version was then picked up by Cave and brought into Shin Megami Tensei Imagine for Windows, for the PC. We're going to listen to this song Kuroe Battle, composed by Kenichi Yoshikawa and Daisuke Matsumoto. we're back. You're listening to the Kuroe Battle from Shin Megami Tensei Imagine for the PC, composed by Kenichi Yoshikawa and Daisuke Matsumoto.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. So I know the character Kuroe is one of the first, I guess, like online people or NPCs that you meet in the game. Later to discover that she, within the branch between the online world and the real world, had left the main player to die, essentially. So and decide with Satan or Lucifer or whatever the evil entity is in this.
Also, she abandons him.
Yeah, she abandons him. So I'm thinking that, and there's multiple opportunities for the player to battle with Kuroe, and in the last one, you kill her dead for good. So this is probably when that song plays. Being one of the first NPCs that you meet, you probably are intended to develop a relationship with this person, and then having to, eventually kill them. It's probably not the most, more revelatory than it is exciting, right? So
it does make me wonder, being a Megaten game, I wonder if it ends up being a choice, or if they pretty much force you down the narrative arc to have to kill her in the end.
That's a good point, especially with this being an MMO, or essentially an MMO. I really have no idea. This game was in development for over a year when it was with Atlas for the Xbox, and then when it was picked up by Cave, it stayed in development for another 4 years after that.
Wow.
And from what I've read, people in Japan, they really loved this game, and so it makes sense that people that are hosting their own servers to continue playing these games.
That fan community is deep. Like I barely scratch the surface of it. I'm just like, hey, I like Megaten games.
Yeah, like maybe that it's just not because it's just, it's another Megaten game, let's all get into it, that it's actually a really well developed online game, especially after being in development for so long. It's interesting that it came out as successful as it was. So very, very cool. So we're going to turn this little smooth track down, and we're going to get into the part of our show we call the bonus round.
Bonus round, bonus round, bonus round.
Shaba. Yes.
Nice.
The bonus round is where we play covers and remixes and arrangements based on our theme, all produced by Shaba Ranks. No, I don't know why we got into Shaba Ranks, but covers and remixes. There's a lot out there for Shin Megami Tensei. Considering how long the series has been out and how loved it is, there's a lot of music out there. So what did you find?
Funny enough, I actually didn't go remix or cover this time, because I thought it was interesting in that, speaking of things that have been in development for a long time, SMT5 was in development for a surprisingly long amount of time, and it will be out soon. And one thing I may have mentioned earlier in the show, that there was a period back when they were first announced the game on a Nintendo Direct, that fans were trying to strip the OST off of the trailer,
yeah,
so people could listen to the battle music more and whatnot. And people were obsessed with it, I being one of them. But fortunately now, even though the game itself is not out yet, review releases have gone out. I know a guy who's already beaten the friggin' game, and I'm jealous because I wanted to review it, despite already buying it. Didn't care, just wanted to play it quicker. But as a result of that also means that much of the OST is kind of leaked too. One of which being the battle theme from the game, which I have been listening to quite a bit since August, only with weird sound effects added into it. But thankfully this one does not have it anymore. So let's try listening to the battle theme from Shin Megami Tensei 5, composed by Ryota, Kozuka, and Toshiko Kenichi. welcome back. You're listening to the battle theme from Shin Megami Tensei 5 on the Nintendo Switch, composed by Ryota, Kozuka, and Toshiki Kenichi. And that may well be one of the rare times I've actually said on the Nintendo Switch. I just thought about it, like, it doesn't feel familiar to say at all. But yeah, I genuinely felt excited to be able to pick that track for the show. And like I said, you don't understand how much I've been looking forward to the OST for this game. Like I said, I've been listening to E3 sound clippings where I literally would hear monster screams during the actual track or like menu option picks.
I was looking at the comment section on YouTube and it's like, oh, this song's great, but I really missed the bird cawing and all these other and I was like, oh, there must be like sound effects that everyone's referencing from listening to the soundtrack over and over again from gameplay that was recorded from E3.
Yeah, like it's a trip, man, but like it just goes to show like there's been a fervent desire for this game to come out. Like it's been a long time coming, and thankfully reviews seem to be on the positive side for it thus far. Even some of the lower ones, they're like not for reasons that I would be concerned about. Like I think IGN so far was like the lowest one of like an 8, but their reasoning was that it wasn't enough like Persona 5, which I'm like, that's good because Persona is the spinoff. And it's a spin-off because it's like Persona. So that's good. So no problems there. So I'm looking forward to this. Like when this game comes out on Friday, I'm disappearing.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. We're not going to see you for a little while because I know you're going to be all in on this one.
Oh yeah, like I didn't get to play much of Neo because, I let reviews consume me. And Psychonauts, I'm finally getting around to messing around with now, but I'm not letting that happen with this game. Yeah. When this hits, I'm hitting it.
Something about that, something about that, and something about knowing that certainty makes me feel safer. You know what I mean? Like we live in a world where Pernell will drop everything for a new Shin Megami Tensei. And that's
the familiar world. Yeah. It's like if you go to you end up in a parallel reality. It's like, how do I know I'm in the real world? Pernell, what do you think of Shin Megami Tensei? Yeah, it's okay, I guess. But you know what I really want to play? Peppa Pig.
We need help today.
He doesn't like Shin Megami Tensei, and he really seems to be excited to play Peppa Pig. That's a problem.
Yeah,
we need help.
We got to help Pernell. All right, so my bonus round track is coming from the Consouls. The nice little jazz group, the Consouls. Ooh. We're listening to the track Tokyo from Shin Megami Tensei 4, composed by Ryota Kozuka and performed and arranged by the Consouls.
I was not expecting this.
Yeah, this came out. I think they recorded this year, so this is a new one. That was Tokyo from the game Shin Megami Tensei 4, composed by Ryota Kozuka and performed and arranged by the Consouls. And definitely one of their more smooth, like one of their smoothest tracks ever. I love that guitar solo when it pops in there. I know you were bopping to it.
Oh, heavens, yes. I was loving. I mean, it doesn't hurt that the Tokyo theme from SMT4 is up there for me as like tracks I'll listen to. That in the Ueno district from that game are just like freaking fantastic.
So good. And it's not just, I think, already like a great song to begin with, but like there's so many interesting chords and the notes just hit in really in ways you're not expecting in that track. So I really, really love what the Consouls did. I love what they do with everything, but I really love what they did with that track in particular. So for more information on the bonus round, go to rhythmandpixels.com, and we'll have links to their Bandcamp and SoundCloud and webpage and everywhere where you can go buy the music and support these artists. All right, thanks for joining us on this episode 30-3 of Rhythm and Pixels. This is our second merry-go-round on the Shin Megami Tensei series. I feel like we've covered a lot more this episode than we did so many years ago. Everything from the Famicom to the PlayStation to the PC, all the way into the Nintendo 3DS. This game is everywhere, honestly. And the last track we're listening to is again from Shin Megami Tensei 3, Nocturne.
4.
This is 4?
Oh, this was Nocturne. Sorry, no, this is Nocturne. You're right. Never mind. I'm just sleepy.
Okay. No, you can't be sleepy. I'm the sleepy one.
Touche. No, that's Sleepy S'more.
Sleepy S'more. Oh, Sleepy S'more. Yeah. I guess we're all a little sleepy right now. I've talked about this before, but like I played through a fan translation of Shin Megami Tensei for the Super Famicom on a ROM. On an emulator, rather, and it has a very dreamlike quality to it. You know, I think it has to do with the way you travel through these the areas and through the dungeons in that first-person perspective. It just feels like a dream, like almost kind of tunnel vision. It's very interesting.
Actually, now I'm starting to think. I think this is from 4. See, that's how I know I'm tired. I'm crossing wires, but I feel like this is 4. No, I'll know for sure when we're done, 'cause I'm going to look it up.
That's the OST that I found this on, was number 12 from Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne.
Actually, that reminds me. I think you'll laugh at this, because I don't think this happened to you, but this is still pretty funny. So, I love Garbage Pail Kid cards and all that, right?
Yeah.
And you know that a lot of people tend to collectors. I want a sealed pack. I want them sealed, authentic. I'll pay 3 times the price for a sealed pack. So, apparently this guy bought 3 packs of Series 11 Garbage Pail Kids. So for those not in the know, this series was released in 1987. He had them mailed to him. And he went on YouTube. He was like, I'm going to do a live opening of these new Garbage Pail Kids. And he had his gloves on to keep from getting his oil on the cards and everything. He's opening these packs up of Series 11 cards, and I'm looking. I'm like, those are Series 10 cards. I'm like. I was like, thankfully, I think somebody ended up commenting. But I was ready to go. I was like, dude, I don't know who you bought. Oh, I did comment. I was like, I don't know who you bought these from, but I think you might want to contact them about selling you falsely resealed packs, because these are clearly Series 10 cards. And I'm just watching this guy. He's all excited. He's like, Hissy Missy. Ooh, that's a cool one. Okay, next one. Bud Sucker. Oh, because he's a vampire sucking blood at a hospital bed. That's cool. And I'm like, Series 10 cards out of a Series 11 pack. That guy told you they were never opened before. And he even left the gum stuck on the back of the one card to make it look more authentic. That's just double shady. But
so
just got me thinking about that.
They were repacked as Series 11.
Yep, the guy took the cards, put them in an old pack, resealed the wax on it, and then sold them as unopened packs of cards.
Well, when you're listening to Rhythm and Pixels, look for the Rhythm and Pixels seal of quality so that you know you're not getting a repackaged Rhythm and Pixels, like bootleg, South Korean version of Rhythm and Pixels. We are the true thing. We're the real deal.
And note, this was not a bootleg Shin Megami Tensei episode. No, this is a new one. This is Series 2.
Series 2.
Shin Megami
That's
Tensei.
right. Series 2. I mean, we can't just rehash the originals. I mean, come on. Anyway, I'm really happy that we went back into this series again because there's a lot of really, really good music. I mean, we could easily do 4 more episodes on the series, maybe 5 before even getting into like the spin-offs into Persona. So. But these are awesome. So if you would like to contact the show, if you have a track suggestion or a topic suggestion, please send us an email.
rhythmandpixels@hotmail.com.
For access to all of our episodes and for a track listing from all of our episodes, go to our website.
rhythmandpixels.com.
We're on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. You can find us as Rhythm and Pixels. You go to youtube.com/Rhythm and Pixels. We upload our episodes there, and we have a 24/7 VGM radio station that plays 8-bit and 16-bit classics and deep cuts. And it just goes and goes and goes for as long as that little desktop will last in my closet, just playing constantly. If you'd like to support the show, the best thing you can do is to tell people about it. Just tell your friends, tell anybody that'll listen about the show. Or you can press the subscribe button wherever you are listening, if it's on YouTube or if it's on Apple Podcasts.
Bake it into your conversations.
Yeah, just bake it in. Just bake it in, like a cookie. And if you'd like to support us in other ways, yes, you can go to Patreon, patreon.com/rhythmandpixels. As a member there of our Patreon, you get access to usually weekly prequel episodes, and you get access to a monthly live-streamed Patreon episode at all levels. And then at the higher levels, you get cool stuff like stickers and mugs and exclusive T-shirts. And I think a lot of that merchandise is actually on its way out today. So that's really exciting to me that stickers and mugs are going out to our listeners. So you can check.
If you see this, I was going to say, just like, if you get one, take a picture of yourself drinking from the mug. We want to see the mug.
Yeah, I want to see your mug with the mug. So put those mugs together and take a picture of your merch. That would be really, really cool.
A toast.
We also like to thank our listeners at the end of every episode at the highest membership levels. And my browser nearly crashed. That's okay. We'd like to thank Frankly Zappa. Thank you very much. Kristen, Mike Myers, Ulf Person, Vashin8060, Andreas Milberg, Brian Pitt, Cameron Werma, Camille May Leon, Carlos, Chris Weisner, aka Musashi219, Christopher Senstrom, Davey Cakes, David Taylor, Harold Howard, Justin Schneider from XVGM Radio, Michael Bridgewater from the Forever Sound Version VGM podcast, also Meebry64 on Twitch, Rage Cage, Reinhardt Zelkova, Sleepy S'more, there she is, Steve Miller, Taco, the Autistic Gamer 89, and Ed Wilson from the VG Embassy.
Sounds like now he needs to do a new episode called the EVGM Embassy, where he's like, he invades Electronic Gaming Monthly.
Oh, I like the EG Embassy, and it's just him reading through copies of EGM. I like that a lot.
I would listen to that quick.
He's got a great voice. I think he could do voiceover work, and I would just listen to it. He's got an excellent voice.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's it. Our next episode will be the Patreon Monsters episode. So kind of the ending of our Halloween series.
Halloween on Thanksgiving sure beats Christmas on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, right. So yeah, get as much Halloween as you can. I hope you're still hanging on to that candy. Hope you've kept it in the house and hanging on to it and just making it stretch out as long as you can until Christmas time.
You better, yeah, because I can tell you right now, I can't speak for everybody, but in this area, on Halloween night, stores were out of Halloween candy. The fabled leftovers discounted candy sales did not happen.
Yeah.
I was shocked.
Well, you know what? I bet you can still find Peeps.
God, don't get me started. 'Cause I've been looking. I've been looking for those and conversation hearts. Can't find them.
Well, anyway, thank you everyone for listening to the show. Next week is 30-4 Monsters. It's going to be a good time. We'll see you next week. My name is Rob Nichols.
And I'm Pernell.
We'll see you next time.
And remember, so I mentioned earlier in the show about the whole issue with how like people decide to review certain games and how people receive those reviews and the content descriptions and all that. And in some respects, it's almost like a second-hand version of like being told how to have fun or what you should think of something or whatever. But it's worth noting that discussing your tastes and hobbies and interests and your difficulty mode choice, hard all the way, by the way, is, it's all well and good and fun. I mean, everybody likes different things and they like things for different reasons. And being able to convey your reasons for liking or disliking or how you would prefer to enjoy your fun, those are great conversation options. That's part of what makes video gaming a social hobby and not an isolated hobby, discussing how you like your games. But that doesn't mean that it's cool to just outright insult people or be vindictive because someone doesn't like something in the manner of which you like it. I mean, no one's required to like anything at all. This is all meant to be fun. It's all meant to be something that takes you away from the insanity of actual day-to-day life. So don't make it such a big personal affair. Just talk about things you like, discuss and, mutually share your differences. And then shake hands and go back to having fun. Because that's what it's all about in the end anyway, right? The heck with all the drama behind it. I just want to play a good game. And however I choose to do it is my business. But I want you to know what that business is. So...